It's the season of giving. We like to say, well, what does that look like in your home? Parents today, I'll add, feel the burden and the challenge to raise kids to be giving in a world that teaches them the more stuff we have, the happier we will be. Studio 5 parenting contributor Heather Johnson says the solutions are actually fairly simple but easy to sweep past in our parenting efforts. It's great to see you.
You too.
The topic of giving, selflessness, big-heartedness, this feels like we are fighting a huge societal wave as parents, working against that wave.
It is. Society, the world is working really hard against this, right? Like you said, they're constantly giving us this message that the more things you have, that's what brings joy, the happier you are. And then we look at our kids and we say, why don't you be a giver and give things away? And they equate that to, well, then I can't be happy.
Yeah.
How am I going to be happy when I'm giving these things? And so we want to, again, really take a step back and use our own homes as this schoolroom to teach this concept. We want to start by redefining what giving is.
Okay.
Giving is not just things. It isn't just money or clothes.
You hear giving and you instantly think presents.
Right, we do. We think, can I give presents away, or what do I have excess that I can get rid of, or what's too small, or what can I write a check for, right? We teach our kids kind of that same process. If we're a giver, this is the way we see people. To be a giver isn't just about, can I take 2 small clothes and drop them off somewhere? This giving and this capacity is, I see people as people, which means they have needs like I do. They have good days and bad days and cares and concerns like I do. That is actually how the giver sees the world. The other thing about giving that's so important to redefine is that it isn't about behavior or stuff. It's bigger than that, meaning giving is when we're a friend. Being inclusive is being a giver. Having energy that we put towards someone else, that's being a giver. So we don't want our kids to be raised just thinking it is about things. Being a giver is seeing people as people and then realizing any talents, abilities, skills, capacities I have, when I share them with someone else, now I'm a giver.
I love that.
We want them to live that way, right? To see.
And I appreciate you broadening the definition, not just for our kids, but that's an eye-opener for us as well. As you talk about really quickly, Heather, our home being a schoolroom, and we acknowledged, society pushing against us. How much of a dent can parents really have? How much control is entitlement inevitable, or how much control do parents have toward this topic?
We have so much control when we're really good examples of being givers. When we realize that we have to do this ourselves. And I know it's cliche, right? We always joke, it always starts with us. And it does always start with us when we want to raise givers also. We have to step back and ask ourselves, do we live a life that's giving? Do we see people this way? And there's some things that get in the way. If we're complaining often about our giving or our time or our energy or our friendship or our money or our food, if we're complaining when we give, that is not going to facilitate raising givers in our home.
Just in those small little comments.
Those small little comments. If we judge, if we're gossiping, if we're talking about other people, remember, being a giver means you see people as people. They have needs like we do, good days and bad days like we do. So when we're judging and complaining about them, we might be going through giving motions, but we're not teaching our children to be givers.
A giving heart.
A giving heart. That's what we're trying to get to.
You want us to put ourselves out for each other. What do you mean by that?
Let's go back to that schoolroom, which is our homes, which is our family. And I can feel the pushback, I'll hear it. But ways that we put ourselves out are actually supporting one another. If you have a child who has a recital, everyone should go. If there's a basketball game that you have a daughter or son playing in, everybody in that family can go and sacrifice the time and the energy to give towards that family member. And I know it's challenging, right? We've been in those positions where doing some of these things is hard. Taking small children to a high school basketball game, it's a challenge, right? But stepping beyond that and asking ourselves, what is the point of why we're going? Because we put ourselves out for one another. It's also teaching them those very small skills that are so important when we're modeling it and putting ourselves out for each other. When we've got service, for example, being patient with someone who's helping you with an order at a restaurant, or putting your shopping cart away when you're done at a grocery store.
The small things.
They're so small, but you've got a car full of kids and teenagers who are watching, who are recognizing you are seeing people as people.
I was listening to my friend Boy Matheson's radio show, Inside Sources on KSM's radio, circling back to that idea that it starts with our family. And he was interviewing a Christian author, and I wish I could remember her name because her thoughts have stuck with me. One thing she did say is, how can I, if I don't like and show up for my own family members, how am I going to love my neighbor. And it's that biblical application to our everyday interactions that sometimes are easy to discard because it is family. But I love that you're encouraging us to step up and go the extra mile for those people in our tightest circles.
In our home, right? I love that perspective, and it is so powerful. If we can't show up, then how are we going to do it in these other places? We want to model this with the people we say we love the most.
Yes, yes.
We do. We want to support that way.
Follow through, you say, is an essential demonstration of this giving mentality.
Again, we're back to demonstrating it, right? Them seeing us. Oftentimes what our kids see in our giving is just the beginning part, whether it's writing the check or dropping the clothes off or making the food and dropping it off somewhere. They don't often get to see the faces of the people who are the recipients of what we give. They don't get to see it all the way through. We want our kids to see it all the way through.
How do we show them that?
We want them to see the people who are receiving those things that we're giving. We want our kids to be involved and engaged in the service or the energy that we're offering out, and them to get to meet, experience, and see it all the way to the end.
Those human interactions.
Those human interactions. So it isn't just that they see us drop off, for example, clothes or coats that might help someone be warm this winter season and being a giver that way. We actually want them to meet the people who don't have the coats.
Which could take some creative effort. I mean, I know a lot of charities, they do things remotely for a reason. There's privacies, there's protections, there's efficiencies. But I think that's a good challenge for parents to look for those human-to-human contact opportunities.
Well, and we're kidding ourselves to not realize that right in our own neighborhoods, in our own lives, in our own homes, there are so many of these opportunities. And teaching them too, really, as we're talking teaching, to be good receivers.
Yeah.
Because we want to be on that other end where we have all been the recipient of someone who's been a giver.
Yeah.
And we want our kids to be on that end too. We want them to see it all the way through to the end.
What does money management have to do with giving?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, right? To throw in here. It doesn't tend to fit, except it fits perfectly because we teach our kids so many things at home. Money management is one of them. And we're very quick to teach them how to spend money and how to save money. But we don't often include the concept of sharing money.
How to give money.
How to give it, how to share it with other people. So when you're teaching about money, there should always be those three characteristics or those three categories. We learn to spend, we learn to save, and we learn to share. And then they can start acquiring their own perspectives of what it means to share with other people. Those times, those talents, the energy, that money. What do we do with it?
Yeah.
And how do we share it?
What I hear you saying in all of these fantastic points of advice is that it needs to be kind of an active, ongoing conversation in our homes. We've got to talk about it.
It isn't seasonal. Being a giver is not seasonal. Being a giver is a perspective that we have about the people we live with. And that means our world, right? That's everywhere. And it starts so tight at home, and then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And talking about it is vital. It is so important, not just seasonally. That means that we're talking about opportunities we have when we see people give. When you're watching a movie and you see someone give, when your children are givers. And remember, it isn't just did they share a toy, it's that they gave energy, that they gave friendship, that they brought someone in during recess and asked if they wanted to play because they recognized them being alone. That's being a giver. If we don't help them recognize it, they don't know what they're looking at. And they don't know how to find it.
Yeah.
So we want to be talking about it all the time. It then opens doors to encourage it and helps them realize being a giver isn't often feeling-based first. We give, and then we feel full. And society wants our kids to think, no, feel full, feel like giving, and then go ahead and do it. We're trying to change that. We want them to know it's when you give that then your heart is full. It's backwards. And so we want to be talking about this so that they can understand, go do it, and then watch that cup be so full. Then you want to do it some more.
I love this conversation so much. What started as an average topic on paper, Heather Johnson puts her heart into it, and suddenly it's all we're thinking and talking about. Thank you so much. Heather has a private practice. You can seek her contact information through the Studio 5 website.